Hello, I'm super excited to be here with you today to talk about some of the things we shipped in Q2 and also some of the things that are coming up in the WorkOS platform. My name is Zeno Rocha. I'm a VP of Developer Experience here at WorkOS, and we're going to cover many things. So if at any point you have questions about it, please leave them in the chat. We'll be happy to answer them. And yeah, let's get going. So this is the agenda for today. We're gonna start by covering some use cases related to WorkOS. And here what we're gonna look into is like some of the customers that are using the product in production today. And we're gonna look behind the scenes to see how exactly they are leveraging it, how they are targeting those enterprise customers. We're also gonna talk about some of the new integrations that we recently shipped. We're going to talk about improvements that we made to the Webhooks experience. We're going to talk about the MFA API and how can you supercharge your authentication by using it. We're going to talk about the WorkOS dashboard and how we're extending it and using SAML and SCIM protocols to make it even better. We're going to talk about Radix, which is a new open source library that we are working on, and also Audit Logs. So we have a lot to cover over here, and I'm really excited. So yeah, let's dive into it. So imagine you're building a new SaaS app, right? Like there's a lot of things that you need to plan for, but it's an exciting journey, right? Like let's say you start building it and developing, and at some point, you have that MVP, you're ready to show this to the market. So you finally launch it. Maybe you do a Hacker News post, maybe you do a product hunt launch, but there's some traction and you see some users start using it and they love it. You start supporting them, they give you feedback about the product, you act on that feedback, make the product even better, and they start talking to their friends. They start referring your product to others, and you start seeing that growth, like that viral loop happening. And like eventually at some point you start charging for it. Like some individuals start paying for the product, maybe even teams, and now you see even more engagement, even like a deeper integration in terms of like how your product can help them. At some point, companies and really big companies are going to come up and say, hey, it's great that you have these individual plans, it's great that you have these team plans, but I need something else. I need much more from you in terms of compliance, security, and all that. And I need certain features in order to close a contract with you. So what do? How do you become enterprise ready? That's a challenge that many startups go through, and that's essentially what you want to provide, right? You want to have an enterprise plan that is powerful, full of capabilities, and the right capabilities as well. The capabilities that the IT teams are looking for, the capabilities that the procurement team wants to check that box so you can move forward with the entire buying process. So that's why we built WorkOS. We want to offer those capabilities so you can just focus on building your app and forget about all those things. So essentially, you can think about the WorkOS APIs as a way to unlock revenue. We have all these built-in features that you can plug and play into your app. And we also offer some pre-built UIs that you can integrate to your application as well. So we have many different products like single sign-on, directory sync, the admin portal. We're going to talk about some of them here. But that's the WorkOS stack. That's the foundation, like those APIs that you can go ahead, integrate to your system, and then make your app enterprise ready. Nowadays, WorkOS is powering more than 200 businesses worldwide. We have some really interesting names like Pitch, Airplane, Gatsby, Airbase, Webflow, Popsicle, and all of these other companies. So there's a lot of different things and different ways that customers are using WorkOS. So we wanted to highlight some of these ways so you can learn more about them. So let's start with PlanetScale. So PlanetScale is a really interesting company. They offer this MySQL compatible database that you can just use as a serverless option. So they were founded in 2018. They are now in a Series C stage in terms of funding. And there's a lot of companies looking to PlanetScale and adopting them as a database provider. So what is nice about it is that they keep evolving and that they are now like getting bigger and bigger customers. So when you go to their pricing page, they have many different tiers as you would expect from any SaaS company, like hobby, scalar, team, and then there's the enterprise tier. And when we look at that tier, we can see some really interesting features. There's one there related to SSO. So let's see how they are building it. When you go to the authentication page, you have the option to sign in with email and password, but also with SSO. And I can just type the name of my organization and then I'm in. But how exactly do they build that? Let's take a look on their dashboard to see the integration. So when you go to your organization on PlanetScale and you go to their authentication settings, there's an option there to enable SSO. And the way you enable is to first declare what is the email that you use from your company. That's the domain that your users are gonna use to get into the system. And then you can just click enable. Once you do that, now you have SSO enabled, but you still need to integrate with your IDP, your identity provider. So how can you do that? There's so many different IDPs that one customer can have, and there's just not enough engineering time to implement every single integration with each one of those IDPs. So they are leveraging WorkOS to do this. So when you click on that identity provider link, you go to the admin portal. And now this is a self-serve experience that as an enterprise customer, I can just come here, make the whole integration, choose whatever IDP I have, and then make the whole configuration by myself. So this is really, really interesting. And that's a really good use case. Sam from PlanetScale even told us that when he asked the team, how is the experience with WorkOS? They were like, this is incredible. So it's just like a testament of how the integration was and how customers are leveraging that. And we're super excited to have PlanetScale as a customer. Another one is called Loom. So if you're familiar with Loom, they're a company that make it easier for you to share videos with your coworkers, and this helps with remote work in general. So it's a really interesting company, really interesting product with a lot of traction. They were founded in 2016. They're now at a Series C stage, and they're using WorkOS as well. When you look at their different plans, when you go to their enterprise page, you have a business plan that they highlight and an enterprise plan. And here they have two interesting features. One is for SSO, SAML, and the other one is SCIM. So let's take a look on how they do it. When you go to the login page, you have the option to log in with different authentication providers, and then there's one option to log in with SSO. So how can enterprise customers enable that? So they first go to their workspace settings, they see the SSO section over there, and then they can select the IDP. Then there's some options there and some instructions on how you can set up. And they also give you this extra layer in terms of configuration where you can not only add an authorized domain, but also enable SCIM. And SCIM is a way for you to connect with a system. And once you make that connection, whenever you provision new users or you deprovision users, then those changes are going to be automatic reflected to the other channels and the other apps that you use. So this is really, really powerful. And it's a very important tool for IT admins to manage employee directories. So Loom has been using the product and seeing a lot of traction there too. So we talked to Vinicius, one of their engineers, and he said that migrating to WorkOS allowed them to focus on engaging customers that require these enterprise features, and that WorkOS gave this in a few days to them. They said that it also helped them to focus on other high priority projects. So that's exactly what we want to do, exactly how we want to help, and super happy to have Loom as a customer. And what about Vercel? That's another company that is more focused in the developer persona, and they're building this platform so you can develop, build, and ship websites using Next.js, their main open source project, but many other front end and back end stacks. So they were founded in 2015. They are now at a Series D stage, and they have 3 different tiers in terms of pricing. And again, when we go to the enterprise level, they offer SAML as one of their integrations. So let's take a look at how that works. You go to their SSO page, you have the option to sign in with your team. And then on the settings, I can come here as a admin on that project, and I can enable or disable SAML. I can also set up a directory sync integration powered by SCIM. And all of this is also powered by the admin portal. Once you click configure in either one of those buttons, then you're taken to that UI where you can make the entire configuration by yourself. And this is what Nathan, a senior software engineer on their team, told us, that their customers love the admin portal because it's easy to use. And this makes their enterprise plan really polished. And that's amazing. We want to make sure that the entire flow for your end customers is top notch, and it's flawless. And once you see things like this, it's really encouraging. So we have many different things that we want to cover today, and we want to talk about all of this today. So let's get started with the new integrations. So we are introducing 4 new SAML providers. They are Cloudflare, LastPass, NetIQ, and Simple SAML PHP. And they are now among this list of 20 plus integrations that we offer in terms of single sign-on. So if you are interested in using it, we're going to continue making even more integrations. And if there's one in particular that you really need, feel free to contact us so we can work on it too. What about webhooks? So if you're not familiar with the concept of webhooks, this is a way for you to fetch data, but it's different from what most developers are used to. With REST APIs, you're basically pulling data from a specific provider, in this case, WorkOS, right? So you're making requests to WorkOS, WorkOS is giving you data back. But with webhooks, it's different. It's the provider pushing you updates, so you don't need to keep always checking, oh, is the new data there or not? So, excuse me. So let's take a look at a real example of how webhooks work. So imagine with a REST API, you're always polling in order to see if there's new data. So at 9 a.m. you make a request and you see, okay, is there new data for me? No. 9:30 you do it again. At 10 you do it again. Until eventually at 12 p.m. okay, now there's new data, and then you fetch that data and update your system. Now that's not optimal, right? You need a scheduler to keep fetching that data, and you're always doing that unnecessary transport. So with webhooks, you can just configure an endpoint on your server, and whenever there's an update, we'll go and then we'll hit that endpoint for you. And this way you can build apps that will react in real time to whatever is changing in terms of directories or SSO integrations. And this is the anatomy of a webhook. You get only what changed. In this example, we have a new user that is coming in, and we can see the state, we can see the first name, last name of that user. And now with that object, I can just propagate the changes to my UI or to my database. So what are we changing in terms of the webhooks? The first thing that we reviewed was the initial integration. We went to that screen and we're like, okay, how can we make this better? And one of the things we wanted to do is highlight the certain events that have high traffic so you can prepare for those. We also wanted to allow you to enable multiple events at once. So the whole experience of creating new endpoints, new webhook endpoints, has been updated. So check it out. We also changed the error notifications. We know that it's really important to know when something isn't working anymore. And we have a system that we will retry multiple times when a webhook fails. And we want to give you that visibility as soon as possible. So we're looking at our emails and we are updating the entire format to give you the right information at the right time. And we are improving the way you can monitor your webhook endpoints. So now you have this side-by-side view where you can inspect every single event, see exactly what was the ATP response, what was the object that returned. And with that, we want to empower you to debug faster and like filter by certain states and all that. So many interesting things here, many improvements to that whole workflow, and we hope you're gonna like it. So now I'm gonna pass it over to David to show us a demo of how that works in practice.
Hi everyone, my name is David and I'm a software engineer here at WorkOS. And today I'm thrilled to be showing you some of the improvements we've been making to the experience around integrating and monitoring webhooks. Let's begin with the integration experience. To get started with webhooks, we'll navigate to the webhooks page and we can click Create Webhook Endpoint to configure our endpoint for receiving webhook events from WorkOS. We've improved the creation flow, making it easier to select the events you want to receive, highlighting events that can generate a large amount of traffic, and pointing you to our best practices guide for building out your webhooks integration. Let's take a look. So in this guide, we've documented some tips on handling events, securing your endpoint, and testing your endpoint. Okay, so let's go ahead and create our webhook endpoint for my very descriptive app, developerapp.com. In order to test it, I can send a test event to my endpoint using the Send Test button here to check if my endpoint is receiving and processing a specific event type. We can see below that our test failed, and in the details pane, I can see my endpoint responded with a 418. Oops, I just remembered that this is an old endpoint and I have a typo in my URL. Let's go ahead and fix that. Okay, now that we fixed it, we can either send another test or click Resend Event here from the detail pane. Let's save some steps and resend the failed event. Nice, it worked. So resend works for both test payloads and real webhook payloads. However, resend only works in staging environments for now. We don't allow this in production environments to prevent you from potentially muddying your production data. Okay, let's switch gears and look at an endpoint that we've already integrated with that are receiving real events to get a taste of some of the other improvements we made. So here in the summary, we're giving you a better sense of the health and state of your endpoint. As you may notice by now, webhook details are shown alongside the list of individual webhook requests, so you can quickly navigate between them to find what you're looking for. We've also improved search. You can search by an event, state, email, or some of its contents like an ID or a specific event type. Let's say I'm looking for all of my webhook requests related to a particular directory user. I can paste in his email and see all the related requests from WorkOS to help me understand what happened with this user. I can further filter by the state and type of events to narrow down what I'm looking for. So that's a wrap for webhook updates. We hope you enjoy these changes, and we're working hard on continuing to make it easier to integrate with WorkOS.
Thank you so much, David. And that's webhooks. We have a new side-by-side view to help with debugging. We have updated error emails so you can get to the technical details faster, and also a more robust filtering experience for you. So really excited about this. Next, let's talk about multi-factor auth. So what is multi-factor auth, or MFA? You're probably familiar with this workflow in different apps that you use in your day-to-day. And that's a way for you as a user to prove that you have something that you know, like your email and password. But not only that, you have an additional factor, which is something that you have. And the combination of those two is what makes a more secure authentication flow. So something that you have can be a phone, some device that you can have like information there. It can be a YubiKey, or it can be like your fingerprint. So there are many different ways that you can leverage MFA, and we want to enable you to create those types of experiences. So we built this API that is currently in a preview mode, and this API is a set of composable endpoints that you can integrate to your app. And we tried to make them in a way that is very agnostic. So you can work with any different authentication solution and just plug that on top of it. We have two different factors for authentication that you can use. One is called TOTP, which stands for time-based one-time passwords. And those are like those numbers that they refresh from time to time. The things that you typically use whenever you're using an authenticator app. And we also have SMS. So if you want to use your phone number to confirm identity, you can use that as well. The cool thing about this API is that it enables you to build things that are on top of that login flow necessarily. So you can go ahead and build things like pseudo mode, which is a way for you to restrict access to certain resources. So let's say the user is going to a page where there's like a very sensitive resource that they're going to access, or they are doing an action that might be destructive. So you can present that confirmation page before they execute that action, so you can confirm that user is who they say they are. And you can leverage the MFA API to do that. So now I'm going to hand it over to Mahamud, and he's going to demonstrate how that API works in practice.
Hi, I'm Mahmoud, and I'm a developer advocate at WorkOS. And today, I'm super excited to be giving you an in-depth overview of the MFA API. The API currently enables you to add support for time-based one-time passwords and one-time passwords sent via SMS. Now, to get started, you'll need a WorkOS account, an API key, which you can find in the WorkOS dashboard. And finally, we highly recommend that you use one of our SDKs in your language of choice to interact with the API, since they offer a better developer experience. Integrating with the MFA API is done in 3 steps. You first enroll your user in an authentication factor. Then you create an authentication challenge. And finally, you verify that created challenge. To give you a better understanding of each step, we'll be taking a look at an example app powered by the MFA API. Now, the app initially had logging in using email and password. However, we wanted to make the app more secure by giving users the option to enroll an additional authentication factor, whether that's TOTP or SMS verification codes. So right now, I'm on the settings page for configuring an additional authentication factor, and the user has the option between TOTP or SMS. Let's configure TOTP. When I click continue, the app makes an API call using the enroll factor function that's available in the SDK, which takes as arguments a type, which can either be TOTP or SMS. Here will be TOTP, an issuer, which is the name of the app itself, and then finally the user's email. And we have access to it since the user is already logged in. The API sends back a response object, which includes an authentication factor ID, a QR code, which you can display for your users, but also we include the secret. So in case the user can't scan the QR code, they can use the secret instead. Now, before rendering the QR code to the user, we're going to create an authentication challenge. And this challenge is going to be created by calling the challenge factor function And this function takes as an argument the authentication factor ID, which we created in the first step. Now, what's going to happen is after this API call, we will get a response object, which includes an authentication challenge ID. Now, this authentication challenge ID we're going to use in the final step, which is the verification. Now, to verify, we're going to call the verify factor function from the SDK to see if the user does indeed have access to the one-time password. And this function takes the challenge ID and the verification code as arguments. So this function will be called when the user submits the verification code. If the verification step is successful, the API will return a valid field with a value of true. Otherwise, it will be set to false, and the user will have to make another attempt again. And that's it. When the verification step is successful, you should persist the authentication factor ID in your database and associate it with the user. This way, when they log in, all you need to do is create a challenge and then let the user verify it by providing the verification code, whether that's their one-time password or the one-time passcode sent via SMS. Now, when it comes to adding support for one-time passwords sent via SMS, the process is very similar. The only difference is when you're enrolling a user, you only need to set the type to SMS and provide the phone number. And then you just go through the remaining steps, which is creating an authentication challenge and then verifying it.
Thank you so much, Mahmoud. We're really excited about MFA, and we have a couple of improvements that are coming up soon to make the experience even better. One of them is a visualization in the WorkOS dashboard where you can see every single user and see what are the authentication factors that they used to verify and challenge their authentication factors. So really excited about this. It's coming soon, and it's going to give you more visibility in terms of who's using the MFA API. We're also launching a new page on the WorkOS website, so you can go ahead to workos.com to check it out, and there's a lot more information about this and how you can use this. So in a nutshell, the MFA API is this set of composable, unopinionated API endpoints that you can use. It works with any authentication solution or middleware framework that you're using, and it gives you TOTP and SMS factors that you can choose to augment your authentication layer and make it even better. So now let's talk about SAML and SCIM. So we already talked about these protocols before when we mentioned the different customers and how they are leveraging WorkOS to build their enterprise features. We also use these things ourselves, and that's what we want to show to you today. So the WorkOS dashboard now have two new features that we provide to developers. One is single sign-on, and the other one is powered by directory sync. The idea is that you can look at these features and make your team even more secure when you're using the WorkOS dashboard, but also look at them in terms of as a reference for implementation and serve as an inspiration as you're building your own. So for single sign-on, we want to enable members to log in with a single identity provider, and there are more than 20 different integrations, not only with SAML, but also with OpenID Connect. This is how you enable. You go to Workplace, and you would see this option there to enable it. And same thing for directory sync. We have a way for you to automatically provision and deprovision users, and we support more than 12 different directory providers powered by SCIM, but also other HRIS APIs too. So to do that, you go to Workspace, same place, and you enable directory sync there. Now I'm gonna pass it over to Wilman, and he's gonna show a demo of how you can do that using the WorkOS dashboard.
Hi, I'm Wilman, and I'm a software engineer at WorkOS. Over the past few years, hundreds of developers have used WorkOS to integrate directory sync and single sign-on into their applications. Today, I'm going to show you one of those applications, our very own developer dashboard. We've taken the learnings we gained while helping those many developers integrate enterprise features with WorkOS and applied them ourselves. By default, teams can sign into WorkOS using either Google or email and password. When your team has access to the single sign-on feature in the enterprise bundle, you unlock a third option, the ability to sign in via an identity provider. On the Authentication tab of the team settings, you'll find all of the controls for managing access to the dashboard. You'll find links for configuring both single sign-on and directory sync, and you'll also find the option to configure multi-factor authentication for your team. All of these are powered by the related WorkOS products. So let's add single sign-on for our team. We'll do this setup through the same admin portal our developers have access to via our API. All we need to do is follow the screenshots and documentation. Within minutes, single sign-on is configured, and we're able to sign in via Okta. We can reopen the admin portal at any time to monitor the health of our connection and to see the recent activity of our teammates logging into WorkOS. We can also invite a teammate, and they're able to log in via SSO. But managing users manually like this can be tedious, especially in larger teams. Not only do you have to manually invite new teammates when they need access to WorkOS, you also need to remember to remove their account when they leave your company. So let's set up directory sync to solve this. Just like single sign-on, we'll use the admin portal and follow the step-by-step instructions. Now, similar to single sign-on before, we have a directory configured with Okta. In Okta, let's provision all of the users on our engineering team. And just like magic, they're all invited to WorkOS now and can sign in with single sign-on. You can see just how well these two features play together. Need to deprovision a user? No problem. Let's say Luke's left the company. You'll notice we no longer allow removing him from inside the dashboard. Everything is now managed over in Okta to keep a single source of truth. If we hop over into Okta and remove him there, you'll see he's automatically removed from the WorkOS dashboard. And that's single sign-on and directory sync in the WorkOS dashboard. They're the easiest way to manage your teammates and to use WorkOS. All of the features you saw today were powered by the APIs that we make available to all of our developers.
Thank you so much, Wilman. So if you want to start using these features today, please contact us so we can enable it for you. And this is our way to make your access to the WorkOS dashboard even more secure. So it's going to allow team members to log in using your own IDP and also provision and deprovision users. So now let's talk about Radix. If you've seen the news, we recently acquired Modules, and they built a product that allowed users to create interfaces on it and export them as components. So similar to probably seen with Figma and others. Now, while they were building this product, they also built two powerful open source libraries, and one of them is Radix. Now, what is Radix? This isn't a set of components that are unstyled, and you can use them to create your own apps. And the idea here is that you have that accessibility foundation that is really hard to build yourself, but they provide that entire layer for you, so you don't need to worry about it. Those components are made in React, so you can use that to build your apps. So what is interesting about Radix is that this is a project that has more than 4 million downloads every month, and it allows like B2B apps to create their own apps in a way that is extremely performant and extremely accessible. Now, we have many companies already using Radix in production, like Vercel, Linear, Supabase, Code Sandbox, LiveBlog, Spaceman, and WorkOS itself, right? Like we adopted Radix years ago, and we have been using this project for a while. So we're super excited to be able to work with that team directly and support that open source work. So I'm gonna hand it over now to Com, and he's gonna demo and talk a little bit more about Radix and how you can use in your own projects.
Hey everyone, I'm Colm, co-founder of Modules, which was just recently acquired by WorkOS. So I'm very happy to be here today for my first WorkOS customer event. At Modules, we built a lot of cool tech, but one of the products that I'm most excited about, which I'm going to show you today, is called Radix. There are 3 open source products in the Radix suite. Radix Icons is a set of over 250 user interface icons designed at 15 pixels with a 1 pixel stroke for maximum legibility across screen resolutions. Radix Icons are available as SVGs or React components. Radix Colors is a library of accessible color scales across 30 different hues, metallics and grays. Each scale contains 12 steps, and the trick is each step is designed for a specific use case, like background, border, low contrast text or high contrast text. So all of your colors are guaranteed to pass accessible contrast ratios, and you get dark mode automatically. All you need to do is add a class to the body element. But the flagship product in the Radix suite is Radix Primitives. Radix Primitives is a library of accessible UI components for building high-quality design systems and web apps in React. There are 26 components available, all free and open source, including dialog, drop-down menu, popover, slider, tabs, accordion menu, and many more. To give you a better idea of how Radix Primitives can help you, let me show you some quick demos. So this is an example of Radix drop-down menu. And as with all Radix components, the drop-down is completely unstyled out of the box. So you can see all of these styles here are custom. I'm using Stitch's CSS and JS library for styling here, but you're free to use any styling solution that you prefer, whether that's vanilla CSS or Tailwind or style components or something else. And up here, I'm using CSS keyframes for animation. But again, Radix is compatible with animation libraries like Frame or Motion, so you can use those if you prefer. So let me show you some of the features of Radix drop-down menu. Let's start with keyboard interactions. So Radix drop-down menu opens with spacebar and opens with enter key. And when you press escape, it closes, and you can see that the focus is automatically returned to the trigger element. Up and down arrow keys move focus across menu items until you reach the end. And when you do reach the end, if you would prefer that focus loops back to the first menu item, you just need to set the loop prop to true on the content part. And of course, you get a nice autocomplete experience on props. There are options available for alignment and offset. So by default, the menu is center aligned with the trigger, but you could choose to align it at the start or the end if you prefer. Another really cool feature is the arrow part. You can see the little arrow here pointing towards the trigger, but if you don't want that arrow, all you need to do is remove the part and it won't render, and Radix automatically handles all of the positioning for you. Submenus are supported, so they open and close both with by hovering with the pointer device or by using the left and right arrow keys. To implement a submenu, all you need to do is nest one menu inside another. So menus can be infinitely nested. So you can see here I've added another submenu. And again, Radix handles all of the position and collisions for you. So there's not enough space here to render the submenu over on the right side, so it automatically renders on the left. But probably my favorite feature of Radix drop-down menu, which is often overlooked on the web, is type ahead support. So when the menu is open, if I press N, it automatically focuses the first menu item beginning with the letter N. And same again if I press S, and so forth if I press C. And if two menu items begin with the same letter, then pressing that key will toggle between those two menu items. And last but not least, we've also implemented screen reader support, and we've tested the components across multiple screen readers to ensure a good experience for as many people as we possibly can. So that's a quick demo of Radix drop-down menu. Our goal with Radix primitives is to handle as many of the accessibility concerns as we can, but to get out of your way as much as possible when it comes to styling, so you can handle that end of things. So all you need to do is to install a component, import its parts, and style them however you want. We launched Radix a little over a year ago now, and it's been doing incredibly well so far. It's doing over 4.5 million npm downloads per month, and it's used in production by hundreds of teams, including Vercel, Supabase, Linear, and of course WorkOS. We've also got a bunch of case studies listed on our website, radix-ui.com, where you can read about how we've helped companies improve their UIs. And of course, if you need a little help getting started, we've also got the Radix Discord server with about 3,000 members where you can ask questions and usually get help pretty quickly. So that's a quick overview of Radix. Again, all libraries are free and open source. So if you're building a new product feature or you want to improve accessibility in your design system, give them a shot and let us know how you get on. Back over to Zeno.
And that's Radix. It's a set of unstyled primitives that you can use to build web apps. It's also a React library that you can use to augment your design system. And on top of all this, it's also an icon library and a color system that you can leverage to accelerate your development. So now let's talk about audit logs. This is something that we're really excited to unveil today. So what are audit logs? This is a way for IT admins to see exactly what's happening and look at all the actions that were taken by users within a certain context. You've probably seen this out there in this example. When you go to GitHub and you navigate to one of your organizations, depending on the permissions that you have, you're able to see everything that happened in that organization. You can see what are the users and what they are doing. You have timestamps about every single action that they did. You know when they did it, but also where they did it. And you can see, like, geographically speaking, where that action was taken. You can see specifically the different resources that action was affected by as well. So it's a way for IT admins to have the sort of control that they need, and if they need to export that information to have an even deeper audit, they're able to do this as well. So this is an extremely important feature for companies that want to become enterprise ready, because it enables these departments to have the visualization that they need. So we're introducing two concepts in terms of the APIs that we are offering to you. One of them is Audit Logs, the Audit Logs API, and the other one is log streams. They have a pretty strong relationship, but they are independent. You can use either one in different use cases if needed. So with Audit Logs, you have a way to not only ingest events, but also export them. And we're providing users with two different UIs to view those events. One of them is the WorkOS dashboard, and the other one is the admin portal, where your enterprise customers can go and see the logs by themselves. So again, we're enabling that self-service experience for your end users. And with log streams, this is an API that you can use to leverage the existing audit logs that you have and stream those events to a third-party provider. So if you need to send those events to Splunk or Datadog or any other audit log provider, you are able to do it using that API. Okay, let's see how this works. So imagine we have app 1, and this app needs to register every single event from every single user in this app. So they can use the Audit Log API to trigger those events, and we're going to store them in a database and make them available in the WorkOS dashboard and in the WorkOS admin portal too. Now imagine app 2. Now this app, they already have a database and they already are storing all these events that users are doing, but they need a way to move those events to another system. So they can use the LogStream API and pump that data to these third-party providers like Splunk, AWS, and Datadog. And those two services by themselves is already going to add a lot of value, but you can put them together. And imagine having your enterprise customers, the IT admins that are working for these big companies, and they go to the admin portal and they enable the log streams by themselves. And that's an extremely powerful solution, and it's going to enable them to have that self-serve experience without having to create a ticket, request you to do that work, and then allocating resources to do that work. So really excited about the power that this is going to provide. On top of all this, we are making a schema validation to make sure that the data that you're sending has the highest quality possible. We truly believe that strongly typed metadata for all log events lead to a much better database structure and also a much cleaner experience in terms of the data that you're storing. So what WorkOS is going to do is that we're going to validate the events before they are sent, and we're going to validate the event, like the top level object, but also the actor who triggered the event and the target objects that these events are being affected by. So let's take a look at how this works in practice. Here, if you're familiar with the WorkOS SDKs, you probably know like you need to import the WorkOS library, you need to instantiate using your API key. And then here's an example of the WorkOS API and how you can use the audit logs to create a new event. So we can see that there's a new action that is occurring. We can see the actor object and all the information related to it. There's a type on each one of those actors. That could be a user, that could be a system level actor, and there's a metadata associated with it. And within that object, you have the freedom to add all the information that you need to store. We also have the target, what is exactly the type of resource that this actor is acting upon. So this can be anything, any type of target, and you can create like a video or like a post, like whatever the resource is, you can define the type of that resource and create a schema for it too. So here's an anatomy of that object. We have targets and actors. Those are strongly typed, and the lines that are highlighted over here are the lines that we can provide you with the flexibility to either add more metadata to the actor, or on the second highlight, you can see the metadata in the event object, and more on the bottom, you can see the metadata in the target itself. So we're going to validate that before the event is sent, so you can ensure that you have a clean database of events that you can always trust. To give you a demo about this, I'm going to hand it over to Patrick, where he's going to explain and show us audit logs in practice.
My name is Patrick, and I'm a product designer here at WorkOS. As we've heard from many of you, enterprises who've adopted features like single sign-on also often require a solution for audit logging. That's why I'm really excited to share with you today what we've been working on for audit logs. Let's get started by setting up audit log events in the WorkOS dashboard. You'll see that I currently don't have any events defined, so let's add some events that I want my audit log to capture from my app. The first thing that I have to do is create an event. I'll give it an action title, which is the name that my app uses to refer to this event. Next, I'll add some target types. These are the objects in my application that this event specifically targets. Finally, let's add some schema validation so that when my app sends instances of this event to the Audit Log API, we can validate that the metadata is typed and structured correctly. For this purpose, we've created a new schema editor. In this editor, we show you the complete JSON schema for each event object, but only certain areas are editable. Within the editable sections, we can add metadata objects containing the properties that we want to validate. You can add custom metadata schema to the top event level, the actor level, and the target level. Let's add a username property to the actor object and give it a type of string. Once we've added validation for our metadata, we can save this schema and return to the event editor. Now that we have some events defined and target types associated, let's see what it looks like when my app is actually sending audit log events. As you can see, there are now events coming into WorkOS from my app with various actions and targets associated with them. We've also created a robust set of filters that allow you to quickly narrow down your data set by actor, action, and date. For now, let's inspect an event to get more details. In this new event viewer, you can see the actual event object with some metadata. You can also navigate through each piece of metadata and see its corresponding definition inside the object. This is really handy for developers and support teams, but what about your enterprise customers? We've also created a new view inside of our admin portal just for them. Enterprise customers will get access to the same type of UI that we show inside the dashboard, but like the rest of the admin portal, it can be customized to fit your app's branding and your own domain name. One common requirement for enterprises is the capability to stream logs to a third-party service. And for this, we've created a self-serve setup flow right in the admin portal. If you've used our single sign-on or directory onboarding flows, this should look very familiar. Your enterprise customers can set themselves up for streaming their audit logs directly from the admin portal to a provider of their choice. I hope you enjoyed this preview of audit logs, and I'm looking forward to showing you more as this feature approaches a beta release.
Thank you so much, Patrick. So if you want to start using this API, please get in touch with us so you can get more information about it. And as a recap, this is a way for you to ingest and export events. We give you a strongly typed interface that you can validate your schema, and it also allows you to stream data to third-party providers using this single adapter. So we're really excited about that too. So we covered a lot today. There are many new things that are happening in the WorkOS ecosystem. We have the Audit Logs API that we just talked about, but also SAML and SCIM in the dashboard. We have updates on the MFA API. We made a lot of changes to the Webhooks experience. We have the modules acquisition, the Series B, new SAML integrations to enable your customers to connect with even more providers. And we're really excited about this. Thank you so much for your attention today. And if you have any questions, please let us know. We're here to help.